Car pieces when hunting up in North Texas. I'd been after this hog for the last 3 weeks or so. It's a crippled hog. It's missing part of its left rear leg. It always looks like it's been over in pain in these images. I don't know that it's actually in pain, but it's obviously not moving very well, and it just needs to be put down. Here's my office view for the night, and he's going to be coming in from the left. I spotted him coming in during daylight hours. Got my sideline camera set up. It's going to be watching my activities as I go through and get everything set up. Now this video is going to be a little bit different than my previous videos. Several of y'all have asked me about doing a video about the gear that I use. I usually don't do videos about the gear that I use, but this was a good opportunity to provide a nice overview of a lot of the gear that I think is quite essential for most of my hunting. Alright, the scope is up and running, and there's the hog. Watch it as it moves around. It does not move like a normal hog, and this is actually going to make it much more difficult to target. Now the wind is not in my favor, but I'm on a high point overlooking a lower valley, and so I don't think my scent is getting down to the valley, otherwise the hog wouldn't be there. Take a cleansing breath, get lined up. Here we go. A shot to the shoulder and it goes down, and of course with the injured hind leg, I'm not expecting this hog to run anywhere. I stay on it to make sure that it is indeed dead. I don't see it lifting up its head. Instead, it's just going through the normal curly shuffle. Put the safety back on. This hog isn't going anywhere. I get the recorder shut off. Secure my gear. I'm going to get out the phone, go through some administrative activities that I go through on every hunt. In this case, I'm taking a picture of the hunt area, and there you can see the hog down in the center. I usually can't do that at night, but I can in the daytime. I'm also going to get the current environmental information. I'd already looked at this earlier before setting up for this hunt. And then I'll get a GPS location for where I am right now. I do this for every shot that I take, and then when I go down and find the hog, I'll take another one down next to the hog in order to determine the distance of the shot, which is what I'm going to do right now. The hog was a 130-pound boar, and as I said, it was a tripod. It was missing part of its left rear leg, and in taking a closer look at the leg, I can see that it is actually well healed. The shot entered through the left front shoulder, breaking the humerus, and I thought the shot would cross the body and exit out the opposite shoulder. Instead, it deflected off the humerus, it appears, and then transited the body, exiting down lower on the rib cage about 15 inches away where it overpenetrated. Not a terribly impressive hog, but one I was quite pleased to get put down. Now, as I said earlier, I'd be talking about the gear that I use on most of my hunts, and a lot of this is the critical gear that I use. I'm going to start off with my hearing protection. I always wear hearing protection. Even though I use a suppressor, I have hearing protection. Sometimes it's muffs, sometimes it's plugs. It just depends. As a night hunter, one piece of kit that I cannot do without is a good headlamp. I know other people like to use things like cell phone lights and everything else to look for downed hogs. They just don't cut the mustard as compared to using a really bright headlamp. This one happens to be from Nightcore. In the future, I'm going to be testing out one from Ace Beam. Looks like an interesting light. Promises to be much brighter than my Nightcore. Of course, I can't say enough about having a good thermal spotting scope. You may not have a thermal scope on your rifle. Maybe you're using digital night vision or regular night vision, and that will work fine. But for spotting game, you can't beat a thermal optic. And it's just so much more convenient than using the one that's on your rifle, and quite frankly, much safer. Of course, I am using a thermal weapon sight. I've had this one for a number of years. It was top of the line back when I got it, 6 years ago? It may not be top of the line today, but it's still quite functional and doing well for me. Aside from the general inquiries about the gear that I use, I get asked about what's on my rifle in particular. I have a buttstock pouch. This is a Condor made pouch. I use it to carry a variety of items. Most importantly, I use it to carry the external battery for my thermal weapon sight. This battery will last the entire night and then some, and so I'm not involved with changing batteries. Also in the pouch are going to be some other things such as a spare DVR battery, SD card, extra earplugs, and even some extra ammunition in case I shoot all the ammunition that I have in my person and want to load up a couple rounds before walking back to the truck. This other item that looks like a pouch with my logo on it is actually the cover for the DVR that records the videos from my thermal weapon sight.
Brass Catcher by Tactical Brass Recovery.
I have used these for several years now. While there are less expensive brass catchers on the market, I don't think you'll find any that are any better than a Tactical Brass Recovery brass catcher, and they will literally pay for themselves with the brass that you harvest. My suppressor is a Silencer Co. Omega. At the time that I bought it, I thought it was the best one on the market to meet my needs, and even by today's standards, it is still quite competitive. And then there is my iconic rifle. It is a Lone Star Armory TX15 Multi Purpose Carbine Enhanced in 6.5 Grendel. This is an excellent piece of kit. I've only had it for a couple years now. I lost track of the number of rounds I had through it after 5,300 and something. So I'm sure I'm over 6,000 rounds at this point, and it is still a wonderfully shooting rifle. Right now, most of y'all know that I do some ammunition testing for Druid Hill Armory. Right now I'm shooting some Hornady SST 123 grain bullets loaded into brand new Starline brass. But this is not ammunition that I'm testing for them. I purchased this ammunition from them just like everybody else does. When they make up a batch, it goes on the market. I check their website. If it's there, I order the maximum that I can, which is usually 2 boxes of 50 rounds apiece. And their ammunition sells out quickly, and the reason why it sells out quickly is because it's quality made ammunition at very competitive prices. Y'all should check them out. Now that ammunition needs to go into a magazine, I happen to use Stoner magazines. They work well for me. Some people like them, some people don't. It just happens to be what I use and prefer. Another product I'm commonly asked about is whether or not I use shooting sticks, and I do use shooting sticks, and I use tripod shooting sticks. They're much more steady than bipods are, and I use Primos trigger sticks. Mine are an older generation 2 trigger sticks. They work very well for me. They're lightweight, easily adjustable, and they go everywhere with me. I know there's some really fancy tripods out there that people use with ball mounts and everything else, and those are extremely nice, and I'll probably transfer to one of those someday, but right now this is what works for me. Moving on to clothing, I don't know that camouflage is necessary. Anything earth tones or camouflage, so long as you don't stand out, probably works just fine. I tend to go with a lot of camouflage, but that's not an absolute. Otherwise, I'm pretty fishbelly white and kind of glow in the dark, so my bald head and arms and legs are always going to be covered up when I'm in the field. And of course, I want my arms, legs, and head protected from briars and biting bugs and everything else. Now, speaking of protection from briars, I haven't had a lot of luck with tall boots, and so I wear snake gaiters. These do a great job of protecting me from briars and also protecting me from snake bite, although I don't think I've ever been bitten by a snake. But if it ever happens, these will supposedly do a good job for me. Now, my pants, aside from being durable, are almost always going to be cargo pants. I'm always carrying all sorts of gear with me. All the gear that I carry, I use, with maybe the exception of some of the blood-stopping gear that is needed for emergencies. Otherwise, if I carry it, I'm using it. Now, normally when I hunt, I'm not in a tree stand or in a ground blind like this. I'm out stalking around, and I am carrying all my gear with me because I'm not leaving anything back at the truck. So I'm going to be away from the truck. So I've either got a load-bearing vest on that has a lot of pockets in it, or I have a cargo vest on. And in those vests, what I'm going to be carrying is going to be nitrile gloves. I'm going to have a spare magazine. I'm going to have a floodlight. I've got a Mora knife for doing the skinning and the necropsy work that I do. I've always got spare batteries. I've got a tourniquet. I've got some sort of blood clotting agent. I've got my metal detector with me. Of course, I've always got a phone with me. I've got a game drag. And I've got my tape measure. And all this gear I use on almost every hunt, except again for any of the emergency gear. And finally, the one piece of non-essential gear that I have that's shown here is my step stool seat. This is made by a brand called Acco. I get this from Amazon. I don't know if this is the 16-inch or the 18-inch version. I've got both. These are extremely handy-dandy. They fold flat. They travel well. This has been riding around the bed of my truck for the last 3 years. For the times that I am out just sitting, this is what I usually am sitting on. Works very well. It's not that heavy. And while it may not be essential kit, it is nice to have. So there you have it. That's most of the gear that I use in the field on a regular basis, especially the stuff that I think that is essential. If you have any questions or comments about it, please put them below. If you're a vendor and want me to try out some of your gear, please contact me. I'm always interested. Carpe sus, my friends.